Hello and welcome to Culture Shock, the pop culture podcast brought to you by four aging millennials and our outdated opinions. I'm your host, Corey, and I'm joined by Mike today. We went and saw a little movie called Black Adam together and had to jump on and talk about it immediately. So let's jump right in. Shazam!
Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret.
Wrong movie.
Oh.
So just to warn everybody before you even listen any further, this is going to be an extremely spoiler-heavy review of this movie. So if you haven't seen it yet, I suggest going and seeing it and download the episode still. I'm glad you downloaded it. Thank you for listening. But I would suggest going and seeing the movie and then coming back and listening to this.
No, fuck that. You're going to kill our retention rate if you pause now and don't come back.
I'm okay with it at the beginning like this. But if you wait halfway through and then get pissed and decide you want to go see the movie, then we see those numbers.
No, that's on you guys at that point. We told you there were spoilers.
That's true. It was only a minute in. So at this point, it's your fault. And
we're about to bless your ear holes with spoilers.
That's right. So it took Dwayne Johnson 15 fucking years to make this movie. He's been talking about it forever. He wanted to make this movie so bad. I'm so glad he got to be Black Adam because he's perfect for it.
He was like 2 sizes smaller 15 years ago.
That's true. He actually needed the time to get bigger for this movie. So now in the movie, I don't know a ton about the comics, so I don't know if you do. Black Adam's been kind of a black hole for me, if you will.
Huh. I see what you did there.
See what I did there? Other than like the animated movies and whatnot, and occasionally reading something about Shazam, he would come in and out of it, but I really never read any of his specific stuff.
I'm going to say my knowledge is probably about the same as yours. I know that he's like the biggest Shazam villain, and I know like what you and I talked about when we watched the movie. He's kind of like the polar opposite of what Superman is.
He's been called many times. I know that much. He's been called like the exact opposite of Superman. Same powers, different morals.
Yeah, like what did I say? I think I leaned over to you and I said, this is like what Superman would be if he didn't have morals. And you said, that's exactly what he's compared to in the comics. It's like,
that's
oh,
right.
See, go me.
So, I mean, Black Adam's always been, I think, even more of a villain in the comics than he is in this movie. In this movie, he's almost more of like a protector with no moral compass. He's willing to dole out justice, even if it means killing many, many people. But he's also good enough that he will save people. And I know that Black Adam in the comics is willing to save people because he's not always a villain. But in this movie, I think because of Dwayne Johnson and his charisma, they wouldn't really be able to get away with him being a complete bad guy all the time. So I think they gave him a little bit more of a likable streak.
Okay, so what I just looked up, because, like we said, we don't really have a lot of comic knowledge about Black Adam. This was from this is from CBR.com.
Comicbookresource.com.
Yeah, they said Black Adam is teetered between hero and villain in the comics, but it's clear to the fans that the ruler of conduct should always be against the heroes. So I think more so than not in the comics, he's more of a villain.
And from the way that sounds, it almost sounds like maybe he has Superman's mentality that people with powers maybe shouldn't, Batman's mentality that with people with too many superpowers maybe shouldn't exist or be around. So maybe when they're too good or have too much power, he goes against them. I'm not sure.
That's possible. I don't know.
Just knowing the way DC does things, it seems like that's probably it.
One of the very few complaints that I had about this movie is that, yes, you will find that Corey and I probably aren't going to say very many negative things about this movie.
No, so we may as well start off on the negatives because
one of the very few negative things I will say is I was really scared, and there were moments where they almost went too far that they were going to make him a hero.
Yes,
I absolutely did not want to see him become a hero.
No,
that's not what he is. And that they got close to doing it so many times that I was like, oh, come on. I was so thankful by the end of that movie they didn't let that happen.
No, I need him to fight Shazam. I don't want this next Shazam movie with Black Adam is in it. I don't want Black Adam teaming up with Shazam to fight another power. I really don't want that. I want Shazam and Black Adam fighting each other. I want it. I want that bad.
I don't know. I really loved his team up with Hawkman. That was great.
Okay, Aldous Hodge in this movie as Carter Hall Hawkman, fucking phenomenal. He was so good.
So fucking good.
Man, I didn't see it coming. Like I knew it was Aldous Hodge before I went into the movie.
Yep.
But I didn't know he was going to he might be my favorite DC person that's come forward in all of this DCEU. He's so good.
What I will say, like, so I've been a huge fan of Aldous Hodge ever since I saw him in a show called Leverage. And he's just a phenomenal actor. And of course, he's along the way, he's done some things that, aren't so great. Every actor has, just about.
Everybody, yeah. That's
I didn't really know. I knew Hawkman was in it. I didn't know who was playing Hawkman. I didn't pay that much attention. I knew Pierce Brosnan was in this movie, but I didn't know who he was playing.
I watched all the trailers and I had no idea that was Aldous Hodge every time I watched them.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, in the trailers, it didn't show you his face really, but as far as the comics go, they fucking nailed Hawkman, like right down to the core. He's like I don't take shit mentality when it comes to people with powers, abusing them and not being a hero. Like
he's almost more of a Boy Scout than Superman in some ways.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, that's what I hate about Superman. But for some fucking reason, Hawkman, I love it. I don't know what it is.
I can tell you exactly
it might be the black twirl in the hair. I don't know what it is. I hate Superman's smug face.
Yeah, it's because Hawkman's an asshole about it.
There you go. Yes. You know what? Yeah, that's probably it. He's sarcastic. He makes jokes. Superman occasionally gets his nice little quip in, but
no, Superman just sounds too reasonable about it all the time, and he's too nice. He's just like, you gotta do that, and he's so dry.
He's too methodical and planned out. He's always trying to figure out the next step, and Hawkman sometimes just wants to attack.
This is nothing, by the way, against Henry Cavill. I think he's amazing as Superman.
No.
I'm just saying the character of Superman. I'm so glad Doug's not here.
Yeah, I know, because we wouldn't get anything out here.
We're about to shit on Superman right now. My brother's going to hate this too.
Hi, Matt. Fuck Superman.
The character of Superman to me is just so dry. Like he's overpowered. He's a Boy Scout. He has no fucking there's not one thing wrong with him. He has no character flaw aside from the fact that rocks can hurt him. Like
and magic.
and magic. That part actually is kind of cool, I will admit.
And if for some reason if you lock Superman in a cave for many years, he gets very thin and weak because no sun can touch him.
Thanks, Flashpoint.
Yeah. But what I will say, and I'm not going to defend Superman very much because I also hate his character. There are storylines out there where he's interesting. I'm sure they exist. Doug's probably right about that. And Matt's even told me over the years a couple storylines I should look into, and they might be right.
There's a show that you and I both really like that is the origins of Superman. And I mean, they made that actually interesting, but I don't necessarily know if it was because of Superman himself.
It wasn't. What I like about Smallville so much is that they didn't give him every power in the book. They didn't let him fly. They didn't give him he had super hearing, but he couldn't hear continents away.
Yep.
He couldn't fly around the world and change time. He wasn't way too OP, and I really don't like that about Superman. I know there are comic series where he is limited and where he is hurt by things, and even the death of Superman, which, by the way, sounds good to me.
That's actually a great fucking comic series.
It's a great storyline, and I love Doomsday. That's he's one of my favorite things to ever come out of DC. And
Smallville fucked that up.
Except Smallville didn't do it great, and Batman vs Superman made him look like a hulked out Goomba from the Super Mario movies.
Kind of reminded me of an Abomination.
Yeah, Abomination, but with spikes everywhere and ice. He almost looked like a Yeti. So I don't like Doomsday in the movie, but there's an animated Death of Superman movie where Doomsday was just so fucking brutal. I loved it. So there's cool storylines. I could probably, if I found a good one, I could sit down and read Superman. But as of today, I haven't found anything that I didn't put down halfway through and just be annoyed by it.
Before we get off the Superman topic, I'm going to drop this just real fast. I think the thing that Smallville did that no other Superman story really does is it shows that Clark Kent actually had flaws. Like
Yeah.
he actually had emotion. Like he was actually worried about people. He made mistakes. He was learning as he went. It was nice to see him falter because that it made you feel more connected to him. Whereas in the comics and in the movies, you just get like, this guy's perfect. What do you do?
Yeah. Even like Batman's biggest problem with him seems to be that he's a chiseled chin Boy Scout. And he's right. I mean, it's boring.
That's why I love at the end of Man of Steel they actually made him kill kill Zod.
Yeah. Plus, he killed 10,000 people while they were going through the buildings. But other than that, back to Black Adam. A good.
Oh, somebody
DC
else who
movie.
kills
No,
people.
okay, I can't say that because I actually like Man of Steel. But Black
No, Man of
Adam.
Steel's good.
Man of Steel's good. Black Adam is actually. It surprised me. I was going into it thinking, here's going to be another stupid popcorn DC movie that I'll enjoy sometimes. But honestly, I already want to see it again. It was really good. I want to find the stuff I missed because, sometimes I go into a movie, I like it okay, and I don't care if I go back and see what I missed. This one I really want to look because I enjoyed it, and maybe the Marvel side of me is like, you have to hate something about this movie, go back. So I want to see it again to make sure I like it as much as I think I did.
I remember when I asked you if you wanted to go see this, you're like, yeah, sure. You're like, I'm not really in a hurry to go see it. And then the critic reviews came out and you showed me the thing of it. And I was just like, dude, I don't fucking trust that at all. Because every single person that has talked about this movie before, like the people who got to be able to see it before it was officially released, like I don't know where they were at when the critics were making their fucking reviews, but every person that I had seen on the internet that actually watched it had nothing but nice things to say about it. So I tried to tell Corey to kind of like keep his reservations, and I was also trying to keep my expectations from being too high because I didn't want to be disappointed at the same time.
My biggest issue with keeping my reservations for a DC movie and the critic, I don't typically go by the critic score. Typically, if I'm going to go see a movie a few weeks after it's out, the audience score is more what I pay attention to. But critics notoriously hate superhero movies. I'll give it that. But if you look at DC movies, all the ones I personally enjoy, the critics have over 50 or 60%.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
and this one dropped down to 39. So I was a little scared because I haven't liked a DC movie yet that was under 50% critic review. So I was like, well, it must not have even hit any critic positively.
The morning when we went to go see it, the official numbers, because it's probably changed by now,
I know what it is right now.
I think it was like 33 critic review and 90 audience score.
As of today, before we started recording this, it was 39 critic, 90 audience.
Oh, so critic score went up a little bit. Probably getting a lot of backlash from all the people watching it going, what the fuck's wrong with you?
That's true. And honestly, on Rotten Tomatoes, it's kind of, I don't want to say easy because that's not the word, but it doesn't take a whole lot to be a reviewer, like a certified critic reviewer on Rotten Tomatoes. A couple years ago, they changed the rules and you didn't have to be like a newspaper critic to be on Rotten Tomatoes. They opened it wide up for anybody who has writing credit anywhere can be a critic.
Oh, so somebody like Baker Reviews could get on there.
He probably could, honestly. He has a couple hundred followers. He has 1,700 views on his one Dune video, so he probably could plead a case to be a critic on Rotten Tomatoes. But he would have to keep up with that. And Adrian, he's not going to do it. So.
No. So I think this is the one I always go off of IMDb's score more than Rotten Tomatoes.
I usually compare them and try to figure out why they're so different or so alike.
Yeah. Right now on IMDb at 49,000 reviews, it's a 7.1 out of 10.
Which for a DC comic book movie isn't bad.
For the DCEU, yeah. That's actually really good.
It's not even that bad for a movie. Now, Black Adam's never going to hit the blockbuster numbers that Marvel hits, but that's because since 2008, they've spent the last 14, 15 years building this amazing universe that everybody wants to keep watching. DC has stumbled here and there, bumps in the road, one high point, and then they fell off. So people are a little more weary walking into a DC movie.
With that being said, Black Adam had earned 140 million global its opening weekend. Which is really fucking good.
It's really good. But I think a lot of that is The Rock is a very likable person.
Well, this is his highest grossing weekend movie where he's the lead.
It makes sense. It's the first movie he was in that was like came from source material that everybody cared about. Like
So,
DC has just as big a following as Marvel. So as a Marvel fan, I'm not saying we're a bigger following because we're not. DC has just as many fans. So when The Rock finally got his Black Adam movie made, of course the DC fans were going to jump all over it. You know, I didn't doubt it would make money.
so we kind of talked a little bit about like a precursor. The movie itself. First thing I want to actually kind of talk to you about, because we kind of touched on it after we walked out of the movie. The only other thing I've ever seen The Rock be considered a bad guy, and I put that in quotations, in is the movie that just came out at the end of last year on Netflix called Red
Yeah.
Notice. And that was a plot twist throughout the entire movie. You thought he was a good guy.
Yeah, he wasn't
And
even a bad guy till the end.
He really wasn't even bad. Like, I mean, because the entire movie, you're kind of rooting for Ryan Reynolds, even though he's the technical bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, I thought, I mean, and I'm not even saying it as a Ryan Reynolds fan. I'm just saying, like, The Rock, his good guy character came off kind of douchey, and you're like, well, fuck that guy. I liked him when he became the bad guy. It was a lot. It was like, oh, I wish we would have got more of that guy, which we will probably in Red Notice too.
Yeah, I really liked that movie.
I wasn't. It was weird because this is an entire movie where The Rock isn't like the goody Boy Scout like he is in every fucking movie he plays.
Yeah.
I was really worried about that.
As a wrestler, he was always kind of like the brute, intimidating asshole. So
Yeah,
it kind of surprised me that when he became an actor, he was always in these things where he's a lovable teddy bear, because that was not his wrestling persona most of the time. And I was kind of glad he got to flex that. And by flex, I mean, Jesus Christ, this guy's huge. And that is not CGI, people. The only CGI in this movie was to make him smaller, which is hilarious. Usually it's the other way around.
They did a really good job with that too. Like it doesn't look fake.
His head's extremely big.
His head almost isn't proportionate.
They should have shrunk his head down a little bit. He was a little too big there.
The last time DC did this, they cast Will Smith as Deadshot, and I think you and I may have had an argument about this before. I didn't think Will Smith, being who he is, he's really not capable of playing a villain. I didn't think his Deadshot was good. I didn't
tell the
like
Oscars.
No, he'll slap me.
He's a villain now.
That's true. But I just, I think Will Smith is incapable of playing a villain in movies. Like, he was Deadshot, who is this fucking mercenary who does not give a shit about anything other than money, and they made you feel bad for him. They made you feel bad for him about his daughter. And then he was like, suddenly by the end of the movie, he was the only one that kind of had a moral compass. And you're like, what the fuck? This isn't Deadshot.
I didn't like most of what they did in Suicide Squad. Like, I love Harley Quinn. I think Margot Robbie's an amazing Harley Quinn. But Suicide Squad didn't get much right. Like
James Gunn did a way better version.
Yes, he did. And Suicide Squad is so bad, in fact, that when Amanda Waller shows up in Black Adam a couple times, I wanted her off the screen immediately.
Did you hear the people there weren't very many people in the theater, but they fucking booed.
People were not happy that she was on screen, and I was one of them, because she is an annoying fucking character, which I know in the comics she was. So
Amanda Waller is you're supposed to hate her.
Exactly. So, kudos for playing it so well, but Jesus, did I hate her.
It's that Skylar effect.
Right. She's so good in Breaking Bad, but you hate her every moment she's on screen.
It was so hard for me not to laugh. Speaking of laughing, this is the thing that I was about to talk about right before we started recording, but I was like, no, I'll save it. You made the comment about the one thing he says to the kid that's your favorite line.
Yeah, when they're trying to come up with a catchphrase for Black Adam, because Black Adam doesn't know what a fucking catchphrase is because he's thousands of years
5,000 years old. Yep.
But the kid's trying to teach him about catchphrases, and he ends up throwing this guy into a building and then saying his catchphrase. And he says, no, you gotta say it to them first, so
before
they can before you kill them. It makes it more badass. And he says, okay, so catchphrase then kill. It's so fucking good. And the kid looks at him and goes, yes. It's like, I like that even the town was kind of morally okay with killing.
Yeah.
The what were they called? Inner Sight or
I
something
think
like
they
that.
called them Intergang or something like that.
Something like that. I can't remember
Something.
exactly
It
what
was
they're called, but
honestly, that was one of my complaints. Is that name is so fucking lame.
it was really bad. I tried to avoid that too.
I think they were called the Intergang, and I'm like, really? But but what I was going to say to you when you said that line to me earlier was, I think one of the reasons that the humor in this movie works brilliantly is a lot of it is just The Rock delivering lines in a very serious tone, not even meaning to be funny, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
That dry, like, I don't get it kind of like aspect of it when everybody else is kind of like, what? No.
I've always loved in movies when there's a lovable dumbass who doesn't understand sarcasm. Like in all the Guardians movies, Drax is one of my favorite characters.
Yes, it's
because
kind
he
of very
does
Drax
not-
like.
It was, and he does because Drax does not understand. Like the one line in Guardians
It's
of
my
the
favorite
Galaxy when
line.
he's
Yeah.
yeah,
He's like, it went over his head. He's like, that's impossible. I have super fast reflexes. Nothing goes through my head.
I fucking love that. Like he's so good. And Black Adam kind of had a.
Yeah.
I think it was more in Black Adam's case. It was more of a lack of being asleep, essentially for 5,000 years.
Yeah, he slowly caught on. Like when Dr. Fate uses the sarcasm on it, he says, what do you say? He's like, I won't kill him or something. And then he does. And then he's like, it was sarcasm.
He goes, "No, that was just a lie."
Speaking of, well, I want to touch on this because I love Pierce Brosnan. He's my favorite James Bond. No offense to Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig's amazing. And
Offense taken.
I love what they did with those movies, but old school James Bond. You're talking about like the campy, gadgety, fucking hilarious but awesome action packed James Bond movies, not the serious Daniel Craig ones, because those ones by themselves are just fucking phenomenal.
They're more spy thrillers.
Yes. But if you're going back to like the regular James Bond campiness, like I think Pierce Brosnan fucking nails it better than anyone.
Pierce Brosnan was kind of the end of that type of James Bond.
Right. I think he was the last one before Daniel Craig, so.
Oh, right, he was.
So, with that being said, I was a little skeptical when I found out he was Dr. Fate.
I was as well.
He fucking nailed it. We were talking about this too. Like, I think he did really well. I was worried how Dr. Fate was going to come off in a movie aspect without them getting too much into his story. And fuck those who think he's a fucking copy of Doctor Strange, because I don't know if you people know this, but Marvel Comics came after DC and copied a lot of DC stuff.
Okay, I think what people are comparing is Benedict Cumberbatch, not Doctor Strange. They're comparing him because a lot of his motions when he flies, a lot of his hand motions, they're very similar to Doctor Strange.
But that's exactly kind of like, that's kind of how it is in the comics. I mean, I know it's kind of hard to tell without it being animated, but if you played Injustice 2 and played as Dr. Fate, he does those hand motions in the game too. So I mean, who's to say who used it first or what? I don't fucking know. Either way, you got a guy like that. He can bend reality. They're basically the same character in all actuality. The only difference is Dr. Fate's got this helmet that tells him all the future, and Doctor Strange actually has to go in all these different multiverses to figure out which one is the right one to go. I don't know. That was confusing.
I was actually really glad that they didn't go too deep into Dr. Fate's like split personality and the Egyptian god that's telling him what to do. And I was kind of glad they didn't really dive too deep into that because that would have been too much for this movie. For once, DC showed restraint and didn't add too much extra shit to each character.
No, they made it specifically about Black Adam. Like, you didn't really get a backstory on anybody else that was in the movie. Like, we got the Justice Society without them going, oh, by the way, this is how they got here. No, we didn't need that right now.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to dive into that in another movie about the Justice Society, fucking fantastic. And I'm glad they did. I'm glad like you said, they showed restraint.
The only real exposition and backstory you got for the Justice Society is that Hawkman and Dr. Fate have been doing it forever, and the original Atom Smasher was Henry fucking Winkler, which was hilarious.
That was a nice little cameo.
That was pretty much all you got about their backstory, is that they've known each other forever and they're old friends. And I like that. Like the new Spider-Man, when he doesn't really dive into Uncle Ben or being bit by the spider.
Yeah.
When Ned asks him, is the spider still alive? He goes, the spider's dead, Ned. I like how that was just kind of how they touched on it. And DC finally did that. Instead of showing us way too fucking much and way too many characters, they gave
Like
us
they
a
did
little
in
bit of
Batman
each
versus
person.
Superman.
Exactly. They tried to give way too much story for each character, and it just didn't work.
Well, it's because, like you said, DC felt like they had to play catch up with Marvel, as like they wanted to get their fucking Justice League movie out there. They
And
did
they
it the wrong
didn't.
way. And don't get me wrong, the Snyder cut of Justice League
Yeah.
did do it. It did do it some justice. It did it some justice, no pun intended. It did help me enjoy that movie a lot more, because there are a lot of things that were in that movie that made it so much better and more enjoyable, like all
Yeah.
the Cyborg and Flash scenes that were cut out.
Yeah, they actually gave them a real character arc, but that's the problem is if you want to give each character in a movie an arc to make it interesting, it's going to
be
be
4 hours long.
4-hour movie, which is what that movie ended up being. It's fine. It's sometimes fine, but you can't put a 4-hour movie in theaters and expect to make $900 million. It's not going to happen.
Unless it's Lord of the Rings.
That's even the Lord of the Rings in theaters wasn't even close to 4 hours.
No.
Those were only about 2.5 hours in theaters, and that was long for back then.
Yes, that's the thing that I'm kind of used to movies being 2.5 hours long now. That when I found out
normal now, yeah.
When I found out this movie was only 2 hours and 4 minutes, I was like, oh, that's kind of short for
I know
for a superhero movie.
We've been shifted in this world to expecting at least 2.5 hours. And when something's only like, I remember I went and saw a movie a while ago and it said 98 minutes. I was like, what?
This is a quick trip to the movies. I'm not even going to need this whole thing of popcorn.
But you know, one of the shining lights in this movie was I'm going to try and say his name. I'm probably going to butcher it a little bit. Oh no, this guy's name isn't too bad. Mohammed Amir.
Oh.
No, the Kamir, the uncle.
Yeah.
The brother of Adriana.
Yeah, right at the beginning, hilarious. He was the character I liked the most at first.
It was immediate. Yep. He had so many great lines, and he was a comic relief without being overpowering. Like one of my favorite things about that he did, and it wasn't even like a big thing. It was when Black Adam walks through the wall and he's pushing his couch. He has like Cheetos or something sitting on his chest. He's just looking up at him, all scared, like, "Oh my god!" I love it.
My thing, I think, right when they're about to fight all those like undead skeletons, he's like, "It's okay, I die by electricity."
Yeah,
I'm like, okay.
Dr. Fate gave a little too much information to people in this movie.
Well, yeah.
But that's one thing I wanted to say about Dr. Fate. That's a small complaint I had, is that his mask didn't have eye holes. I kind of didn't like that. Like at the end when Hawkman holds it, it all of a sudden has eye holes for a second, but I don't like that it didn't when he had it on.
The other thing I didn't like about Dr. Fate, and I think this is probably Pierce Brosnan's decision, was he barely wore the helmet.
Yeah.
Like he took it off all the time, almost like he was like, well, my face has to be showing because I'm Pierce Brosnan.
It was probably partly that, partly it probably cost a lot of money to have a full body CGI. Like Black Adam was mostly just when he's flying and stuff, but Dr. Fate with that mask on had to be CGI pretty much the whole time.
I hope down the road maybe we get like a separate Dr. Fate movie or a Justice Society movie. Like
I would like a Justice Society
before
movie.
All those events, like maybe like when they're all there. I would love to actually. I would love them to go actually into like the whole Hawkman and Hawkgirl thing, because I don't know if the way they do it in the Arrowverse is actually correct to the comics or not.
To where they're from like a long time ago and they're basically
like
gods?
They're originally from Egypt and they're in this ever reoccurring thing where they keep coming back to life after they die.
I think that's always been their thing.
So, I mean, I would love for them to go deep into that. I would love to see like Dr. Fate stuff, but they would have to bring Jay Garrick in because he's part of the Justice Society, which as a Flash fan is the most boring fucking Flash there is.
Well, the Justice Society was never a fun team. It was always a very dry, thought out team. But even Hawkman wasn't funny in this movie. He was just like, he was like, he was one of those like, I'm not going to take shit from you, so I'm going to puff my chest out. And because Black Adam is twice his size, literally, The Rock is twice his size, it never really came off as badass. It came off as, dude, you're going to get hit.
But he was relentless. He never stopped.
He was.
And that's why I loved it. That is very Hawkman. Like, he doesn't give a shit how big you are. If he feels you're in the wrong, he will fight you. Like, that is what he is.
Yeah.
and they nailed it. They nailed Dr. Fate. I don't know much about that fucking tornado girl or whatever the fuck her name was. Cyclone.
Cyclone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know much about her. I think the actress, I feel like I've seen her in something else before, and she was good in that too. But Quintessa Swindell,
Sindel from Mortal Kombat.
Swin,
I
like
got
wind.
that was a joke. That was a joke, Mike.
But what I thought the guy you were going to say was Noah Centineo, which played Atom Smasher.
Yeah.
We talked about this. I thought his kind of he kind of doesn't really have a good intellect, so he's kind of an idiot, but he's helpful, and what he says is funny because he's dumb.
I like that. Like
Yeah.
even when Ant-Man first turned giant in Civil War,
Yeah, it was
he
very
was a bit of a
similar to that,
dumbass.
yeah.
he
I mean, it's
fucked a
Paul
couple
Rudd.
things up. It's Paul Rudd. He's good at that. This guy seems to be the same kind of actor. He can play that part. And I liked him. I liked him
Yeah.
plenty. And I really liked Cyclone. She was a great character. She was very interesting, and she was like a tech gadget girl who they needed that. That's always important in a team. But her powers just seem very pointless in the movie. They didn't seem to need her powers. Like every time she did a little tornado and threw something at somebody or just blew them away, it didn't really help.
I know we were like, what was she even there for?
I mean, even Atom Smasher wasn't a huge help. Every
No,
time
actually, he almost fucked up some stuff.
Yeah, even the one time he was pinning him to the ground. I don't know why they were all standing around talking like that worked. That definitely did not work. I don't know what they were thinking, but I don't know.
Man. What did you say when you're like when she first showed up? Your thought was like, do they really need a tornado here?
Yeah, she jumped in and created a tornado, and all it really did was throw stuff at civilians, and everybody could see a little less. It didn't seem to make any sense. It didn't do anything. Black Adam didn't move. It didn't hurt anyone.
Hey, so I found out why. I'm just by looking at the cast list. That wasn't CGI what they did, other than they imposed The Rock's face over top of this guy named Benjamin Patterson.
Well, yeah, I know that.
His cast name is Skinny Teth Adam.
Yeah, I didn't literally mean. Oh, yeah. For anybody who doesn't know, his name most of the way through this movie is Teth Adam, because that was his name back in the whatever era he's from.
5,000 years ago.
Yeah, 5,000 years ago, the Egyptian slaves and all that. His name was Teth.
I'm not gonna lie. The first couple of times when I heard them saying it, I thought they were saying Death Adam.
Death. So did I at first. I was like, why are they calling him that? But most of that movie, you think they're kind of throwing you off, making you think that the gods all chose him to be Black Adam, to give him the powers of Shazam. And the real story that you finally find out is fucking heartbreaking, really. That
it really is.
His son was a badass. He wanted to change the way slavers treated the slaves. He rose up and fought the people. He was given the power. That was true. The gods did choose him to give him the power. But just because his dad was, dying, right?
I think so, yeah. He was about to die.
He was either dying or he was just beat real badly.
He was beat real badly. I think he might have been stabbed. His mother was already killed.
Yeah. They ransacked the house and killed his family.
Yep.
So he gave up his powers to his dad and then was immediately killed. So It's a tragic fucking story.
And so naturally, he fucking goes in a revenge rampage. Like, you can't blame him for that. I would have probably done the same.
Not only did his whole family get slain, but he also was a slave his whole life. So he had a lot. Yeah. And then he's given this power, this fucking god power. Who wouldn't go on a rampage and kill everybody involved?
Can we talk? So before we kind of because this isn't going to be a very long episode.
No.
But so before we get to the end of it, though, I want to kind of talk about the brutality in this fucking movie. Like, this movie was supposed to have an R rating. I was contemplating taking my children to see this movie until I saw that the only reason it doesn't have an R rating is because they took out all the blood.
It's basically an arcade or an arcade version of Mortal Kombat. There's still a lot of brutality. There's just not any blood flying everywhere. He kills some motherfuckers in very brutal ways.
He fries this dude all the way down to his skeletal structure, and then just fucking squeezes his spine where it meets his neck, and his fucking skull face falls to the ground. That's the first brutal thing you see him do, and you're like, holy shit.
they show a helicopter blade impale a guy to a truck. They show him put a fucking grenade in a guy's mouth in slow motion. I really liked that they kind of used the Quicksilver slow motion
for
where
that
everything
scene.
was kind of moving and he was just kind of floating through changing stuff. I really liked it. I didn't hate that they stole that. Like I'm sure there's plenty of people out there pissed about that, but I liked it.
I was gonna say they stole the grenade. They stole him shoving something in some dude's mouth slow motion thing from Deadpool.
Well, either way,
I was just no. That was definitely.
I really don't think that, but
no. Now that you said the Quicksilver thing, that's more accurate. No, yeah, you're right. And I remember you saying, and that's like one of your biggest gripes about all DC movies is the excessive use of slow motion.
That is my biggest gripe with this movie.
Like there was so many parts, like when Cyclone was flying through the air, she was doing her slow motion stuff. I'm like, why?
It was
what exciting is happening right now?
Because when she's using her powers, she's spinning, so you don't see her. So I think it was literally just to show her. But they did it so many times, it just didn't make sense.
Here's what we only need to see that once. We don't need to see it 500 times. We don't care.
And then when they're doing any kind of like struggling, they're all kind of going, oh, yelling in slow motion. It doesn't. Dragon Ball Z? You don't need it. Yeah, wow. Dragon Ball Z doesn't do slow motion like that. No, they're just powering up, and then they. And then you can't see them.
Have they ever done slow motion in Dragon Ball Z?
I don't think. And
if they have, it's been very seldom.
Just some maybe like when they're doing those quick flashes across somebody's eye.
Oh yeah,
stuff like that. But they don't. I don't.
Yeah, but that's like 2 seconds.
Yeah, not an entire movie.
So yeah, and obviously that's a big Zack Snyder thing, is slow motion. And of course DC just kind of was like, yeah, that's great. We like that. Let's do that.
Zack Snyder's always done the
if you're gonna fucking keep stealing Zack Snyder's ideas, then just fucking restore the Snyderverse.
They're on the right path. You know, they have a very solid choice here to make now.
Yeah.
This is a good start. They got Shazam as a decent movie. They got Black Adam was a good movie. They're building a universe now.
Yeah. Can we pretend that Wonder Woman 84 doesn't exist and just talk about the first one?
The first one's amazing.
The first one's so fucking good.
84 it was a mess.
I didn't even watch
She was not a badass anymore. She was more of a damsel, and I hated that.
That's what I heard. Yeah, that's not Wonder Woman.
No, she was a damsel in distress almost that whole movie, and I fucking hated that. There were
never watched
Aquaman.
I heard Aquaman was good.
Aquaman is a good movie.
Did the second one come out yet?
It did not come out yet. I believe Amber Heard's only going to be in like the first couple minutes of the movie.
Are they cutting Amber Turd out of that?
I'm pretty sure they are. I have always been the kind of person that can separate art from artist. So I can go back and watch Aquaman and enjoy that Amber Heard is in that movie. She's nutsoid, but
one of my favorite movies she's in. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. Never Back Down.
Yeah, she's great.
I actually forgot I forgot that was her.
I forget almost every time until I watch it. Yeah, that's a great movie, and she's good in it, but she doesn't look herself in that movie. She's really young, and
no, she looks a lot different. So I think that's why I always forget.
Yeah. Here's my one other big gripe with this movie. Ishmael was not an interesting villain.
No, and we called that right from the fucking beginning too.
He was a very typical, like, do you remember True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger? The main villain of that movie, the terrorist guy. Ishmael was very typical Middle Eastern terrorist. It was boring. Yep.
And then when he became that fucking what did he become?
King Octon.
Yeah.
It was cool. It looked
badass.
But
and when he was getting ripped apart, he looked badass.
It was all extremely badass, but the whole point of that fight was don't let him sit on that throne. He gets to that fucking throne and it doesn't matter. They made it not matter at all.
Yeah. Like maybe they cut a bunch of shit out, but like when he sits on that throne and the dead rises, I was like, oh, we're about to see some really badass shit here. And then you maybe get to see those dead skeletons, the undead skeletons, I guess, if you will. You get to see the 5 minutes, yeah. And
5 minutes, and it's not even a superhero fighting them. It's all the townspeople.
No. And that leads me to probably my biggest gripe about the movie. And I talked to you about this too. The kid, what's his name? The actor's name?
His name is Badi Sabangui, I think.
Yeah, so him, the guy that played the kid that played Amon,
Yeah.
fucking phenomenal throughout this entire movie.
Great fucking
Like,
actor, man.
great line deliveries. Like, his scenes were really cool. And then at the end, he gets up, he gets to do the hero, the champion thing with the triangle, the whole Wakanda Forever ripoff.
Yeah. Kondak forever. It was
But yeah,
great fucking idea to have that kid do that.
yeah,
But
it was great, but it was poorly delivered. I don't know what happened. He sounded like a mouse. He didn't sound loud. And
nobody would have heard him
if
standing up
if
there.
I was there and this kid was giving that speech, I would have looked at him and said, "Fuck you, I'm going home."
Yeah, I would not have followed him.
I don't. It bothers me that he went through this entire movie with such a strong performance, and then that's like the lasting effect you get. That's the
Yeah.
very last thing you really see him do, and you're just like, really.
I'm hoping maybe they can bring that kid back in a small capacity and maybe
Yeah, because
redeem him a
I
little
liked
bit
him.
because he was great the whole fucking movie. Okay,
Yeah.
we talked about this whole movie. Let's just the post credit scene. Let's just get to it because fucking there's been rumors for months and months and months that Henry Cavill wants to come back as Superman and that
Yeah.
WB's thinking about it. Hey, we might do it. Knowing full fucking well they have a mid-credit scene where Black Adam is finally the protector of Kahndaq. He's helping people. He's being the hero, which blah blah blah.
I did like that. I did like that he destroyed the throne. That was cool.
But he destroyed the throne because nobody should sit the fucking throne. He's a protector, not a king.
Yep.
Which is wrong. He should have been a king because Black Adam's a bad king. But the drone comes. Amanda Waller's fucking talking to him, which I hate her so much in these movies. She's trying to play this deadpan badass, which is what Amanda Waller was in the comics. I just hate her. Which is probably a good thing. Like, you're supposed to hate her. I think
it's weird.
She's not a good person.
This is another one of those situations, and I always go back to this show, but I think Smallville did it better. I think Amanda Waller was done way better in Smallville.
You and Smallville.
It's just they did so many characters right. There's not very many of them they got wrong.
Aquaman.
Well, yeah, but that was they used the old Aquaman, not the new 52 Aquaman.
Right,
so that was their problem.
They used old orange and green fish talking Aquaman. But he gets all pissed. He says, "There's no one on Earth that can destroy me," and she says, "Well, then I'll have to call people that aren't from Earth." And he says, "Send them all." And she says, "So be it." I love when he breaks the fucking drone because it shut her the fuck up.
Yep.
But then down flies old Soups. And as much as I hate Superman, I love Henry Cavill and his Superman. And when he walks out of the shadows, I was so happy. It was a very big fan moment for me, and I got chills. I usually don't get chills with Superman, but that did it for me.
I don't think that Amanda Waller called Superman because I don't see Superman answering Amanda Waller. I think Superman just saw Black Adam and saw what was going on with him and said, "I think I might need to intervene here because he's the Boy Scout that he is."
I don't think Amanda Waller called him, but I think he was her contingency plan if he blew up her drone and didn't listen. I think he was working with Amanda Waller. That was way too much of a coincidence for that to happen right after he said no.
I mean, yeah, that's the only thing. It does seem really coincidental, but I just in the comics, I don't think Superman ever actually works with Amanda Waller.
That doesn't mean they're not going to do that. I'm not saying he's working with Amanda Waller. I'm saying she may have reached out and said, "Listen, there's this guy. You're the only one who can do anything about it. My teams can't take care of this right now. They're not strong enough. I need you to at least talk to this guy." Because she probably has a reasonable side to her.
Yeah.
Where she knows that, my Suicide Squad's not going to walk in there and stop Black Adam. So I need you to go talk to him.
No, it literally would be a suicide.
Yeah. She may as well just call them suicide.
You don't think King Shark could have taken him?
Bird.
I'm sorry. That's still, I as a huge Flash fan, I might be a little impartial about this, but he was my favorite part of Suicide Squad. The new one. The real Suicide Squad.
Yeah. The Suicide Squad. The first one was just called Suicide Squad. This one was called The Suicide Squad.
That's the only movie I ever enjoyed John Cena in, so.
Idris Elba was perfect in that movie.
Idris Elba was perfect in that movie. Everybody played their parts perfect.
Idris Elba is perfect in everything he's in.
I'll
watch that man act for the rest of my life.
In fact, and I still like him in this, but I think the thing I like the least of him in is The Office.
Yeah, wrong. I love Charles Minor.
No, Charles. So I don't hate it. I just think like as far as all of his characters go, that's probably my
Oh,
least favorite.
yeah,
Um,
probably. I don't know. I
he's a,
haven't seen that horrible Hobbs versus Shaw movie with The Rock.
that movie actually isn't bad. I didn't hate it.
Now I will watch it eventually because I don't hate their characters. I hate Vin
No,
Diesel.
yeah, no, they did a really good job. Plus, Ryan Reynolds has an uncredited cameo in that movie
Oh, cool.
as a Hobbs is a like old partner from back in the day,
Nice.
and they hate each other. Well, Hobbs hates him, but he thinks they're brothers. It was kind of funny.
That's funny.
So I think that they had plans to maybe go more into that if they make more movies.
So, like, I think it's fair to say we both really enjoyed this movie.
I'd go watch it again.
I will probably watch it again. I actually might take my son. I wanted to see how brutal it was.
Yeah.
I mean, he plays Mortal Kombat. This is nowhere near as bad as that.
That's
So.
my kids are a little younger than yours. I can take them.
My son's a teenager, so I think I can get away with taking him. But he's actually the actual age, PG-13, so
yeah,
I actually can get away with it. But if you had to put this somewhere in your DCEU ranking, is it your top? Is it in the top 5 somewhere?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
I think Wonder Woman was my number one. I think it might even be better than Wonder Woman. It might be better than Wonder Woman for me.
it's right up there.
The only thing that I think maybe Wonder Woman edges this movie out still is that fucking amazing scene of her getting up out of the trench and just fucking walking across that battlefield. That gives me chills.
Wonder Woman's theme music, period, gets me. I love her theme. I can't even do it. Like usually, I can do a theme with my mouth. I can't even figure out how to do it. It's fucking amazing.
Except when I do that, I feel like I'm doing a immigrant song instead.
It's definitely in my top 5. It might be in my top 3. Like I'm not a huge DC fan, but I'm obviously not. DC. I'm obviously not adding any of the Nolan Batmans or the Batman.
No, we're just talking about DCEU.
DCEU, it might be my favorite DC movie in that universe.
You haven't seen The Flash yet.
So, like I said, it might be my favorite DC movie.
Well, just looking forward, Ezra Miller aside, from what I've seen just from like the teaser trailers we got of that movie, it looks like it has the potential to be so fucking good.
Potential, but there's a lot of problems surrounding it. And it's a very hard storyline to tackle if they are going with any kind of...
They're going to probably fucking have to at this point.
Yeah. That would be smart to just reset the entire universe because they could still use some of the good characters that they have, like Cavill and The Rock, but get rid of some of the weak links, you know? But
maybe use Jesse Eisenberg's Zack Snyder cut Lex Luthor.
Yeah. I'd say that if I had to put this one in a list, it's top 3 right around with Wonder Woman and there's not a lot of shining. Like Aquaman? I could do Aquaman's good, but I think it's below Black Adam. You know, I'd probably say these are like close to tied for one, Wonder Woman and Black Adam. They're both very, very good movies.
Yep.
They both have their awesome moments, their badass fight scenes. So yeah, but out of 10, what do you think? Because I'm probably putting this for a DC movie. Jesus Christ, I probably give it an extra point just for being a DC movie that I really enjoyed. So I'd probably say this is a good 8 out of 10.
I was gonna say mine's between an 8 and 8.5.
Yeah,
it's somewhere in there. If I had to actually give you a list of like a top 3, it would definitely be like Wonder Woman just by a little, Black Adam, and then the Snyder Cut Justice League.
Snyder Cut's up there. There's still a lot of problems with it, but yeah, it might be 3rd for me. Yeah, if I watch this a couple more times, it could very easily be my favorite. I'm a huge Rock fan. I'm a fanboy, and
do you smell? You know, if you
smell it,
with the Rock,
I smell it. He elbowed the shit out of me in my kitchen while I was making ramen noodles.
You jabroni.
I'm a jabroni. So, all in all, I agree with the audience on this one.
Yeah, critics got it wrong again.
Critics got it wrong. But that's pretty much all we have to talk about here. Black Adam, great movie. I really suggest it to any of you who want to see it. And if you haven't seen it yet and you're at this point in the episode,
dumbass,
you don't have to see it now. We pretty much told you everything you need to
know. I will say this. Black Adam is awesome. It's just so fucking good. I had to throw that in there. It is it might be one of my favorite things that I've went to the theaters to see so far this year.
It's a lot of fun. It was worth the trip. I'm a theater person, so I'll go for anything, but I have left theaters very sad sometimes. So this was actually not this was not a bad trip. I went home thinking about this movie the whole way home. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see it again. If you want to go ahead and give us a 5-star review anywhere you get your podcast, that would be fucking amazing. We really appreciate it. If you want to follow us on Facebook, it's Culture Shock Podcast. On Instagram, it's Culture Shock 21. And on Twitter, where I do most of my work, it's CS Podcast 21. Well, that's going to do it for me and Mike here on this episode of Culture Shocked. Thanks for listening.
Tell them the man in black sent you.